Talking about influencing Congress. So let's get ourselves going here and set up. Okay, there again, same thing. We will have some questions that will be embedded into this a little bit, but we're talking about the ways that we can influence Congress. Again, this is a relatively short note deal, but I will flip around into some interest group or lobbying organizations as well here. But there's a number of ways that we can be involved with influencing the congressional branch and legislators. Party influence certainly becomes the first, and what happens is that the parties themselves, Republicans and Democrats, become the basis for which our politicians get put into office, and thus sometimes become the basis for how they vote. And so I list some things here that can go on, but one way is that the party is used as a crutch to help with votes. And what I mean by a crutch is that there are way too many bills to be looked at in Congress. And for our politicians, the opportunity to not have a chance to see all of them, they have to rely sometimes on, this is how the Democrats are voting, this is how the Republicans are voting. And again, a lot of funding for these politicians, a lot of support comes from those parties, and so sometimes they just have to follow party lines. The parties themselves can be used to help exert influence. Certainly we see this in the way that political elements in our society are playing out in almost any action. But the party is there to really help to exert influence. And again, there is big party structures at the national basis, in a national basis. And so, they're out there to try and make sure that they're exerting their influence, not only on the membership of their party from an individual perspective, but also on the people who are representing the party in office. And so that becomes kind of a big deal. If it's used properly, the political parties can be very, very powerful. Certainly in Congress, we've talked about the party in power gets to select every single leadership position. They are the chairpersons of every single committee. And so that becomes a very, very powerful thing. And if it's used properly, that party can really, utilize the strength it has in those numbers. And then it should also be noted that the party is the most influential in two areas, economics and social issues. Certainly in the year that we're recording this, in 2011, economic issues are at the forefront, and the parties themselves are extremely influential in the way that they're dealing with economic problems. So the political parties, certainly a factor for our congressmen and being influential. The president can also influence the legislative branch, and understand that there are teams of people in the White House staff or on the White House staff that deal with relationships between the two branches. Again, they go out there and build some connectivity, some connection points. Staff members are going to work together on things. The president is going to go out there and do whatever he can to try and get the legislative branch to buy into his agenda. Now, this can be done in a lot of different ways. President Clinton, I put up here, really used his personality to do this. And the other thing that Clinton did really well, and again, he was very successful because when he was in office, the legislative branch was made up primarily of Republicans. They had a Republican majority. And he did a really good job of coming to mutual decisions that they could both agree with. And that really helped President Clinton get some of his stuff. And they would negotiate, and President Clinton also had a lot of support out there amongst some critical voting groups, and so that really helped his cause. Popularity can be a factor here. Ronald Reagan, again, same thing, Democratic legislative branch and then a Republican president. And Ronald Reagan was able to use his popularity and his savvy as a speaker and as a very likable person in order to get some of his things done. Ronald Reagan also had a phenomenal staff. They worked tirelessly in negotiations with the Democratic side and were really good at playing politics to get this done. And then I put in here and I put, George W. Bush was kind of the opposite because of his lack of popularity. He had a hard time getting a lot of his agenda done. And then finally, the presidential influence is we know who the president is. We could all name Barack Obama. We could probably do this when we started the course. But could you name even your own congressman or one of the senators from California before we started class? And can you even now? I mean, I say that kind of jokingly, but ultimately, the fact that there's only one person in that office gives them instant media credibility, that kind of thing. They can get on the microphone, and we know President Obama is speaking. It should also be noted that over time, this influence from the president has really gone up. At one time, the president sort of stayed out of lawmaking, and they viewed it as a chance to execute law. But this influence has really expanded as we've gone further and further into history. We also have interest groups that are part of this process, and the interest groups have become part of this process a little bit. There are people out there, lobbyists, and lobbyists are people that work to represent interest groups. Now, when we say interest groups, it is extremely broad. Many of you are members of interest groups and you don't even know. For example, and I sort of use this somewhat jokingly, but it's not a joke, I guess, is that I'm a member of an interest group because I belong to the Zoological Society of San Diego. Now, why do I belong to that? Because I got young kids and they want to go to the zoo and I don't have to pay every time I go. So if I join the Zoological Society and I go to the zoo twice in a year, I paid my dues. And so, because I get in free. So yeah, we go to the San Diego Zoo and my kids like the zoo, so I guess I'm a member of the interest group that is the Zoological Society of San Diego. That's a kind of a small, sort of negligible example, but we have many of those. Orange Lutheran is an interest group when it comes right down to it. Our ability to influence politics around us in the city we are in, the county we're in, maybe even in the state of California, it's an important piece to the puzzle that makes this our campus work and our school work. So, the interest group element can be very, very broad. Now, there are some that are much more powerful than others. And there's some, really strong environmental interest groups, the National Rifle Association, the NRA. One that I don't have on the screen here is worth noting, the AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons. My guess is that your grandparents are probably members of this. Very, very powerful lobbies. And they work very hard to get the parts of our government, especially the legislative branch, to put things into place that are going to help them. How do they do this? Well, a lot of it's done by meeting with members, sharing information, encouraging citizens to be involved. A lot of it's just in Washington, D.C., the people that are actually going through the process of writing bills and putting the specifics together, quite frankly, will sometimes meet with or receive some information from these interest groups because they can't do all this work on their own. So the interest groups will work together in that area to try and get them involved in their particular, in that bill. So if they're writing an environmental bill, an environmental lobbyist may want to be involved in helping them to put the word and language together to make sure that the environmental lobby's needs are met. So again, it's just sort of this ongoing thing here that they work in unison to try and influence what's going on. I'm going to show you a couple examples of other ways, and again, it's a little bit of using not the media necessarily, although the internet, I suppose, could be a form of media, but let me just show you a couple websites. And again, this is a website, the National Resources Defense Council, and again, this is obviously an environmental lobby page here, and you can see as I kind of scroll up and down, there's just things on here that you could talk about, what are the news issues that are out there, policy, and you can kind of get an idea of some of the things that are going on. There's a place for you to donate money or to take action, so you can see some of these elements out here that might be a role and ways to get involved. You can also see that this organization, is making, there's a little bit of cash here, right? In 2010, this is $99 million they were able to operate with, and then their expenses you can see here. So again, this is an organization that is spending a lot of money. Another one, and I'm going to slide this over a little bit. Here's the Gun Owners of America. So we're going to go to the other side of the street. That first one is probably a more liberal lobby, right? The environment. Here's a gun lobby, and again, you can see kind of some things here that talks about some of the elements of the gun lobby and what they want to do, right? The only no compromise gun lobby in Washington, a quote from Ron Paul up there. But you can understand that this is obviously a very clear cut. This is a bunch of people that really want to make sure we have eliminate some of the controls we have on handguns. And so there's a lot of stuff on this site that would show you how to go about maybe getting involved and helping to do this. Again, there's a place to sign a petition over here. Let me see if I can find it. I didn't see a tab up top, although I'm sure it exists. Here you go. You can join. You can sign up. contribute. These tabs are important because they need to continue to make money. So again, those are just two examples. There are thousands of interest groups out there, like I mentioned, all of which doing different things to try and get success. But again, those people are out there exerting influence. And then finally, there's the money element. And certainly at the level that we have to consider, what happens is there's something called PACs, and PACs are political action committees, so PAC. And PACs are the the political arm of interest groups. So lobbyists are out there working, and they represent interest groups, and then the PACs are the ones that really try and get out there in the political and play the political game, and a lot of that includes giving money. Now, there are limitations to how much money PACs can give to specific candidates. However, they have the unlimited ability to fund general campaigns. So like if the gun lobby wants to go out there, that one we just looked at there, if they wanted to put a commercial on the air that talks about, promoting gun ownership in America and why it's important, they can do that as much as they want to no end. They can continue to spend money in that area as much as they'd like. However, there are limitations to how much they can give to one particular candidate. So there is some limit there as to how much money can be given to help exert. But a lot of money that individual congressmen get, or congresswomen, comes from PACs, and that's a large portion of their fundraising because it comes in large sums. We're talking about, when I say there's limits, in any given year it can be between somewhere around $5,000 to $10,000. So pretty, not insignificant amount of money, but certainly some. So this gives you an idea of some of the people that are influencing congressmen. And one thing I would like to point out here, and again, we'll touch on this as we go through, but the biggest influence on congressmen is their constituents. No matter which previous slides I've showed you, whether it's presidential influence, party influence, the interest group lobby, all those things, the reality of it is what matters is what the members' constituents want. They have to deal with constituents first, okay? All right, so I told you I would give you a couple questions as we went through, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to back into these slides and the party influence thing. And going back to party influence, do you feel, and this is question number one, do you feel that a political congressman or a senator should vote along party lines? Is it okay that they use the party as a crutch, as I mentioned, to vote? Okay, so that's what I'd like to, I want your opinion on that. What do you think? Couple sentences. Is it okay, because there's so much work to be done, is it okay for a Democrat to just vote along party lines with Democrats? Is that okay? In regards to presidential influence, I want you to talk about Barack Obama, our current president, and I want you to tell me what you think his role has been. Is there anything you can think of, things that he's doing currently to try and influence Congress? And again, you may have to look this up a little bit, or maybe you can think of things that he's done, and you may think it's a failure, or you may think it's successful. That's irrelevant. But what is he doing? Is he using any of these traits here? Is he using his personality? Is he using his popularity? Is he using the power of his office to influence the legislative branch? And then finally, with interest groups, can you think of an interest group, or can you think of an area that's important to you? And, again, this could be an environmental thing, an issue. Can you think of an issue that's important to you? And what I would like you to do is just literally go into Google, type it in, and write down, what you're interested in. So write down environmental lobby, gun lobby, whatever it is, it's your thing. And I want you to just kind of describe a couple of the interest groups that are in that area. So give me a couple interest groups, and then tell me what they're doing to try and influence the agenda of America. Okay, so pick a couple. Everything you put in there, almost regardless. So let's say you're really into surfing, right? And so you really love the ocean. Fine, type in Save the Ocean Lobby or Ocean Focus Lobby or interest groups, and you're going to find stuff. And so do that. Again, ultimately in our government project, this is a big piece of this. Is looking up some interest group influence and things like that. So this will kind of feed into that if you haven't started this already, maybe a little introduction. But again, I just want you to look up at least 2 interest groups that would represent something that you care about. Okay? We'll put a Dropbox on the MyOlu page, and you'll be all set. Thanks a lot.